Hello and welcome back to my humble show. So, Attorney General Pam Bondi said something within the last 24 hours about so-called hate speech, which I very much disagree with, and you can feel free to disagree with me as well. Let me know in the comments below what you think, what you know. I'm going to go through this as quickly as possible. But let's start with this clip from the Katie Miller podcast, where once again, Attorney General Pam Bondi was being interviewed and said the following.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
All right, so I have a hard time being charitable with her. I have a hard time giving her the benefit of the doubt because I don't trust her, for one, namely because she handled the rollout of the Epstein files extremely poorly. So yeah, I'll get into some of that throughout the course of this very short show of mine, but she said there's free speech and then there's hate speech. She also said, we will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech. Okay, if you are literally targeting someone, that's one thing. If you're targeting them for violence, that's one thing. But if you're just saying mean things, that's an entirely different thing. And that is protected within the Constitution, within the law of the land, Supreme Court on down. So yes, Republicans, there's no such thing as hate speech. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi, there's hate speech. We will absolutely target you for it. Though you can interpret that differently if you would like. Is Pam Bondi incompetent? Or is it just me? Before I forget, I saw where someone suggested, which has now been deleted, that she be fired and replaced with Matt Gaetz. So I said, didn't Trump already appoint Matt Gaetz? I know he did. Dude couldn't handle the heat, so he got out of the kitchen. Couldn't even stomach a confirmation hearing, unlike Pete Hegseth, who was also riddled with scandals, or alleged scandals. Gave up his House seat prematurely, for obvious reasons, too. I don't trust him at all. From bad to worse. Yeah, I think Matt Gaetz would be even worse than Pam Bondi. But if Pam Bondi were to be fired or to resign, which I doubt she's going to do, I wouldn't complain, because, once again, I'm not a very big fan of hers. I don't trust her. A lot of show and tell sometimes. More telling than showing. And sometimes the telling is for show, if you know what I mean. Yeah, on with this thread. Because Charlie Kirk believed that so-called hate speech was still free speech. Do better, AG Pam Bondi, I said. But this is what Charlie Kirk said in May of last year. He said, hate speech does not legally exist in America. There's ugly speech, there's gross speech, there's evil speech, and all of it is protected by the First Amendment. Keep America free. So yeah, there's a saying about defending the right of others to say things you don't like. Dying for the rights of others to not like us. Something like that. Something along those lines. And give me liberty or give me death, I guess, right? Because that's what it's all about. And if you start moving the goalpost, when do you stop? Well, where you currently stop is with calls to action, calls to violence. I mean, let's be real. If it's about anything that could possibly incite violence, every politician in D.C. needs to be locked up. Every person in the country almost needs to be locked up, because we have all said things about someone else that, if taken out of context to their ultimate extremes, could be used as justification for violence against whoever we're talking about in the heat of the moment. So I don't think, as professional and legally savvy as Pam Bondi supposedly is, she really meant what she said. If I'm going to be more optimistic, I think she knows better. Now, it's possible that she herself is attempting to move the goalpost right now for some reason, because what better time than now? But I think if she were to be asked, she wouldn't necessarily double down on what she said there, or at least how she said it. I think she would say that she meant hate speech, as in speech which actually crosses that line, legally speaking, or illegally speaking. But maybe she doesn't know the difference. I'm not really so sure at this point, to be perfectly honest with you. But that's what Charlie Kirk had to say, and he seemed a little bit more knowledgeable than her, to be honest. That's not everything he had to say, though. He also gave a speech a few years ago. He has given many speeches, but I saw this one going around. I thought it was worth sharing. So I say to you, listen to this to hear what Charlie Kirk's response to Pam Bondi would have been. And in the beginning of this, once again, you'll hear Pam Bondi. And then at the end of it, I have inserted the video of the Charlie Kirk speech. It was actually his answer to a question.
There's free speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people, so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything, and that's across the aisle.
I was wondering if you could talk about where you draw the line with free speech, hate speech, and slander.
It's a terrific question. My position is that even hate speech should be completely and totally allowed in our country. The most disgusting speech should absolutely be protected. And it's not a viewpoint that is held by the left. The ACLU used to hold this viewpoint. The American Civil Liberties Union, they sued so that legitimate Nazis could march through downtown Skokie. You remember this? Back in the 80s and 90s? Now, why would the ACLU do this? Because they said, as soon as you use the word hate, that is a very subjective term. Because then all of a sudden it is in the eyes, or it is in the implementation of whomever has the power. So here's my belief. The more speech, the better. Let's use the Westboro Baptist Church, for example. So there's a movement that says it should be illegal to say what they're saying. I think what they say is disgusting. I think what they say is reprehensible. But I've also seen every time they show up, a multiple of people show up peacefully to show how foolish they are. I think that in a civil society, the best ideas will win as long as you have that marketplace. And here's the real issue. As soon as you shut up hate speech, those people only get more powerful. And this is the unintended consequence of censorship. You give more credence to the silenced person the moment you shut them up, because then they can play the victim and they say, they're trying to shut me up because I have something that everyone else wants and I'm a threat to them. No, you're not. You're just a fool, and those people have too much power. And so the minute that you start to enforce speech laws like they do in Europe, based on specific political opinions, regardless of how reprehensible they are, then you actually give credence to them. This is why in Germany, where they do not allow swastikas, they do not allow Nazi paraphernalia, their white nationalist awful movement is actually gaining traction because it has like a rebellious underbelly. No. Let me be very clear. Bring your bad ideas publicly so decent people can cross-examine you, so we can see who you are, we can talk to you, and convince the public otherwise.
I'll interrupt him just long enough to add that the saying reads like this: I do not agree with what you have to say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. Evelyn Beatrice Hall. The quote was actually written by Hall, an English writer, in her 1906 book, The Friends of Voltaire, as a way to summarize Voltaire's views on free speech. So, yeah, that's what I was referring to earlier. I just didn't want to paraphrase it too much. Thought I'd look up the actual quote. Also, what he said about the opposition playing the victim if dissent is quashed. Let's face it, Democrats are just looking for a reason to use that argument right now. I've already seen it. They've said things like, there's a darkness just around the corner. They claim that Donald Trump is going to use the assassination of Charlie Kirk to quash their own dissent, as in the dissent of the Democrats. Now, I think Democrats have been more guilty of that than Republicans on a local and federal scale. But when Pam Bondi says things like that, it's just fodder. It's just fuel for the fire. So, got to be careful, Republicans. Slippery slope. Condemn all of the violence, the violent rhetoric, even the hateful rhetoric, but also defend the right of people to say things that are disagreeable and even hateful. That's part of what makes America America. I mean, there's yelling fire in a crowded theater. You can't really do that unless there's a fire. You might be facing some consequences if you yell fire in a crowded theater with no fire afoot. But these things always have to strike the right chord. They have to strike the right balance. And in a court of law, it wouldn't necessarily be beneficial to have people bringing cases against each other because of mean words. You know, there's libel, there's slander, there's disinformation within professional publications, which can turn into something much more nefarious, and it does all the time. But as for me calling you stupid, I would hate for my right to say that to be infringed upon, if that makes sense. I think it does.
This is a hard argument for some young people to hear because they're like, it's so hateful, it's so awful, it deteriorates our country. No. Those ideas, if they spread, deteriorate our country. But good people will speak in opposition to them. And that's why I'm a big believer, I'm a free speech absolutist, through and through. I think that the utility of speech is what makes human beings different than any other type of being on the planet. Aristotle said we are the speaking beings, that our capacity to communicate is who we are. And I actually think it creates an active citizenry when bad people are allowed to speak. When really bad people are given a permit, all of a sudden the entire population's like, that's disgusting, let's go get our yard signs, go make them, and we're going to go speak out against them. They're kind of on their toes, they're looking out for things. All of a sudden, if the government becomes the speech police and they start calling the shots, like, oh, the government will get rid of the bad guys for me. And they kind of become complacent. They become less active. They become less responsible for the country around them. And so I don't draw a line. That's me. I say that you should allow all opinions to be heard. Now, with slander, if you make the intentional publication when you're behind a news outlet with false information, knowingly false information, I think that you should be able to be sued in court more generously with the libel laws that we have in this country. And so the difference is that if you know you have materially false information and you publish it to a big, wide readership, that is not freedom of speech, that is slander. And it's very clear what the Supreme Court has said with that. And so I hope that helps answer your question. So thank you.
All right. I was looking something else up because what he said about the government policing speech reminded me of President Joe Biden's Disinformation Governance Board, which failed and was ultimately shut down in August 2022 following intense backlash. The initiative was widely criticized as a potential threat to free speech and was compared to the Ministry of Truth in George Orwell's novel 1984. Yeah, I remember that. What about you? They took a lot of heat for that, as they should. And if the Trump administration were to do anything similar, yeah, more heat. So I know that the authorities are investigating various online groups because Charlie Kirk's assassin was involved in some of those groups. Apparently, he pretty much confessed to his killing, to his murder of Charlie Kirk through such conversations online. And he had suggested that he might be doing such a thing beforehand even. So if there were people who were complicit in this, well, only time will tell. Hopefully all of those chains of conversation can be traced. Sometimes if they're linked to overseas companies and apps and so on and so forth, it's hard for the government even to track what was said and by whom. But I know they're learning more and more. And yeah, there might be some sort of crackdown that's justified in all of this. But the way Pam Bondi was speaking was not leaving me with a sense of satisfaction. But this is just my general reaction. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Keep in touch, keep in tune. New content is coming soon. And yes, like I said, feel free to disagree with me. Feel free to disagree with Charlie Kirk even. But do so respectfully. Considering. Peace.